Welcome, everybody, to the Building Aaronsburg podcast. I'm Thomas Aaronsburg.
And I'm Catherine Aaronsburg.
And today we're going to tell a couple stories kind of to get to our point, but our point will be about doing the right thing.
That seems so generic. That seems like a really big pond, a big, deep pond. I think we're going to really narrow it down and go a little niche with it.
Yeah.
Doing the right thing in a more one-to-one capacity, I think.
Right. Okay, so let's tell our stories, and then we'll kind of dive in. So the first story comes from one of our sons at school got in trouble because a friend of his passed him a note, and it was saying some really mean things about some other kid in class, and because he had the note when the teacher confiscated it,
And he did contribute to it.
He got in trouble. So we had to sit him down and have this talk that we're going to talk about today.
Why didn't you stand up and
Right, because
say that was
he
wrong?
knows he's a good boy. I think we're training him well. He knows right from wrong. He knew it was wrong.
Overall, this discussion has come up in our house so many times in the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like it was something that we needed to talk about on the podcast because it was one of those like slap me in the face. It's happened so many times in so many examples across every facet of our lives that I felt like someone is slapping me in the face saying, you need to be talking about this because I
Right.
think it's something we believe that we are raising good, kind children. That's all I've ever wanted is for our children to be kind to others. But I think that there is a fundamental difference between being kind generally
Mm-hmm.
and then being able to be the child or adult, either one,
Right.
who can assess a situation in a group and say, this isn't right, I'm not going to be a part of this, and then possibly even removing another person from the situation with them that may be being attacked or being bullied or whatever the case may be, and then helping out that person to get out of the situation. It could be something where there isn't a victim necessarily.
Sure.
Like the note thing, the kid that was being hurt
Had no idea.
Probably didn't know that the notes were being passed back and forth, but certainly I want our child to be the one who will go, this stops with me. I'm not going to continue to pass this note because it's ugly and I don't believe in what you're doing here. In the case of the story that I will tell, I was at the gym probably last week. It hasn't been that long ago. And I was lifting free weights. There was a girl behind me lifting the same weights I was lifting. And there was a guy there in the vicinity there. He was doing a whole different, like we were both doing leg squats or whatever.
Right.
And
you don't know any of these people.
I don't know any of these people.
Right.
Just me hanging out at the gym. I had one of my earphones in. I always keep one open just because it's a security thing for me. I don't want both of my ears plugged all the time.
Right.
But still I can't hear everything. But I saw him put down the weights he was lifting and go over to her and start talking to her. And I immediately felt like she was uncomfortable. That was my first initial impression of the whole thing.
Right.
And then he stood next to her and he started lifting weights with her. And I thought, this is so weird.
Doing like the same exercises and stuff?
Yeah, but again, my ears plugged. They were on the side that my ear was plugged and I couldn't hear what was going on. But I'm watching her in the mirror and she just looks increasingly uncomfortable. But, am I the person who's just going to step in? I don't know her. I don't know him.
Right.
They didn't come together. Like I was there long enough to know that they didn't come together.
Okay.
But I thought, is it my place to step in for this? You always hesitate.
Right.
Is it my place? And so I decided I would watch and I would just see what happened before I did anything. And so I went over and did some different weights, some different machines or whatever. And I'm kind of watching the whole time.
From a distance.
And eventually she got up and left. And I thought, where did she go? Like, I don't know how to describe it other than I could tell that she was uncomfortable. And so I stopped what I was doing and I went to a different part of the gym to see if she was there and she wasn't. And I went into the bathroom and I could hear her. I pulled my earbud off, put it in my pocket, and I could hear her crying and talking to someone on like FaceTime or a phone or whatever, talking about what had just happened to her.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the whole story. I wasn't really listening for what was happening. All I know is she was uncomfortable at the gym. She was by herself and that guy was not wanted, in her life at all. And so I went into the bathroom. I asked her if she was okay, and she said no. And I said, do you want me to walk you to your car or walk you out? And she said yes. So I walked her to the front of the gym, And she said, I think I've got it from here. So she walked out to her car, and I stayed and made sure that he wasn't watching her to continue out with her
Was he
because
still
she
in the
was
gym?
afraid. Yes, he
Okay.
was still in the gym. I told the management um, what he looked like. I don't know what they did after that. I may be a little bit regretting not following through a little harder with
Right.
that, but I would have regretted it 1,000 times more if I had not gone to find her and
Mhm.
walked her out of the gym, because seemingly no one else in that gym saw what was going on except me.
Right. Yeah.
No one. I mean, no
Yeah, you
one.
just happened to be there when it was going down.
Yeah, and I think, I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, and people accuse me of being, that being a bad idea because it puts crazy ideas in my head. It makes
Right.
me,
Cynical?
no, not cynical, but always thinking that someone's out to get me.
Okay. Yeah.
Like you're always something's, you're just afraid. You're listening to all these things, and it's making you, what's not superstitious? What's the word for it?
I don't know, skeptical?
No, babe, not skeptical.
Paranoid.
Paranoid. Yes, paranoid is the word for it. Where there's, you listen to all this stuff, and so suddenly you think everybody's out to get you. In my opinion, what the true crime has done for me is made me acutely aware of what's going on around me at all times.
Right.
I look like I'm not paying attention. I look like I'm listening to something in my earbud, but I'm watching what's going on around me. And I am, something loud came toward me out here in my other ear. So I am there. But all this just got me back to this point of standing up for people and not regretting what could have been if I didn't, you know what I mean? If I
Yeah.
didn't come through and stand up for that person. Okay, so we've got the one at the gym, which that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. So I knew I had to do something about that, but it took me a minute. I didn't
Right.
immediately act. We have
I
our,
think you acted with an appropriate amount of time, though. I think if you had
I mean, it was,
maybe, I don't know, like if you jumped in while they're having that conversation, if you jumped in early enough, they'd be like, "Lady, back up,"
you should
you
have,
know?
I mean, if you could have only been inside my brain. I'm standing there in the gym a little ways away going, I need to do that thing that they always talk about on the true crime podcast where you go and stand between the guy and girl and go, hey, Sarah, which isn't her name,
Right.
whatever your name is, like you just make up a name. You ready to go now? And you just like pretend like you're that person's friend, like you've been knowing each other for
Right.
years, and you take her out of the situation. Like I was daydreaming doing that, and
Right.
I didn't do it. And so I think it wasn't I didn't know what to do. Like I had that scenario in my head to do, and I didn't do
Right.
it. And so I think there's a little bit of regret there. So we have that one. We have our son with
That's cool.
at school, and then a friend has told me a story about, she saw somebody in the neighborhood while she was walking. He was darting in and out of dark shadows, whatever. She
Mhm.
called her dad, and he was like, leave it alone. Like, no good can come of this. But her conscience was nagging at her, like, I need to go knock on the neighbor's door and make sure they're okay. There's someone sneaking around their house.
Right.
So, like, in that case, there's some other force telling her, and someone older than her, and,
Right.
her
Someone you
dad,
respect, yeah.
yeah, telling her, leave it alone. And so, what I'm getting at is all of this comes down to the ultimate, yes, we want our children to be kind, but I also want our children to be the ones who will do the right thing when not just do the right thing in the time, but also to be able to identify it when it comes
Right. So I was
along.
gonna say in the thing with our son, I think it's two parts. First, you have to there's an identification to it that what this kid is saying is mean, and I either want to participate or not participate in what he's doing. So that's the first part, and you gotta win that battle first. You gotta teach your kid the right thing to know, hey, we're not gonna do that. That's not what being kind is. If this is happening to you, you wouldn't appreciate it if you found out about it. But that's the first part, and then the second part is after you've identified as this is something that I don't want to continue. Do you have the leadership skill
But how do
of
you ever
courage
how do you train your kids
well, you put
to
them in those situations.
how? I mean, we're talking I think of really horrific things. I mean, a kid like I always think of what we're teaching our children as this gradient that's going to get more and more and more adult
Right.
like as
Right
they get
now it's
older.
passing letters.
Yes, right now it's passing letters,
Next time it's passing alcohol or
or
something.
sure, in high school it's passing alcohol. In college it's um there's one girl and a bunch of guys, and something could be happening to the
Right.
girl. Are you going to be the guy that's going to step in and save the girl?
Right.
I mean, that sounds dramatic, but that's the kind of things that that kids get themselves into, and I just worry that they I think there is a lot to say about, um, kids that their brains aren't fully developed yet, and they're standing there looking at something that
Right.
is possibly horrific, and they don't
They
even
can't even
know they
process
can't
it.
even process it enough
Right.
to know, like,
Sure.
"Oh my gosh, what is happening?" Let alone,
What
"This
am I
is
supposed
what's
to do?
happening. I need to get out of this. I need to
Right.
get them out of this. Let me stand up to all the people who are my peers standing around me." I mean, it's a
Right.
lot.
It is.
It is a lot, and
It
so
is.
I do take some sympathy for groups of people who are in the situation who are not the person who is doing the act, but are
Right.
maybe guilty by association, because it's really difficult. Peer pressure is what it is, but then also there's this, like, youth brain of not really being able to
Right.
process
You
what the
gotta be
heck
able
is
to
going
process it
on.
first and say, this shouldn't be happening. I need to put a stop to it."
Right.
And then the second part is actually putting a stop to it.
And, some people would say, probably are listening to this going, but it hasn't happened yet. You deal with it when it happens. No, I don't want to deal with it when it happens. I want for this to
Right.
be something that we have repped a million times, and it's as easy as,
Right. So
brushing
you
your
like you
teeth.
said, you can't rep the actual thing happening. Like I'm not gonna put my kid in a situation where they're gonna pass alcohol around and see if he's gonna take a sip.
Sure.
But I need to put him. I at least do mental reps of, hey, this happened today. What do you think should have happened? What would you have done? And then they've at least done the mental rep.
Yeah,
So that
it's
when
just
they
a
get
concerted
to the
effort to do
physical
that,
rep,
because God knows I mean, this last week, the kinds of stupid stuff that they have done.
right?
I mean, you guys were talking about things like, we have specifically told them, "Do not open that door. Do not do this thing," and they do it anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and so it creates a trust issue for one, but if they can't follow those instructions, what on earth makes me think that they're going to really be able to do something bigger, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like a big time worry, but I think overall, as listeners, I mean, a lot of you guys probably have children, or even within yourself. I think and that's what we're talking about here is kids become adults,
Right.
and then you guys are adults that are listening. And as adults, are you doing the things that you need to do? And I'm not talking about protests, and, like, I'm not talking about, like,
Right.
big demonstration things. I'm
Right.
talking about
Just noticing the little situations that you get into.
one-on-one ways that you can make
Right.
differences in someone's life. Like, it matters. It matters huge. I mean, it could possibly matter to you. If you're guilty by association, you could get yourself in some really big trouble, of
Right.
course. But getting someone else out of a situation, that could turn out really bad, and you're seeing it from the outside. I mean, imagine what that person's brain is doing it's happening to.
Right.
They don't have the ability to call out for help. They don't have any ability. I mean, their brain is really racing. And so you, at least on the outside, have a little more of a clear brain, and just get out of there, you
Okay. Well,
know?
let's play the connect the dots a little bit.
Okay.
So you obviously had never been in a situation where someone was being harassed at the gym and you had to step in and rescue them, but it did happen to you and you did step in and help them.
But I am a bold woman in comparison to a lot of people. I will stick my nose in a lot of
Right, but
things.
would you say you did that as a kid though? I mean, that's
I would say that I have always been a person who would, stand up for what I believed in to a fault. Um, Now it's never been, again, the protesty type, like, standing up for, like, I've never been like an activist type as such.
right.
But in college, I mean, all the stories about college. They tried to change the syllabus on it. I was like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going. You can't make me go. Period. End of story. I was literally the only one in several cases who stayed home from a trip. Maybe there was maybe one other person that protested. I mean, these were trips in college that they added to the curriculum and to the syllabus midway through the quarter or midway through the semester, which you cannot do. They
Mhm.
cost $1,000 to go on. One of them in particular, they were driving in cars up a mountain in the snow.
Right.
It's like a dangerous trip for a bunch of Louisiana kids and Alabama kids to go on. And I didn't go, and they couldn't count me off for it.
Right.
But I was not going to
But they
go
tried to
along.
make you feel like you had to go.
Oh, absolutely. And I was, like, reading all the rules and making sure that I was dotting my I's and crossing my T's, because I was not going to be I'm just not gonna go along to get along for that kinda stuff.
Right.
And so, I mean,
See, what's interesting about that though is if that had happened to me, I don't think I would have thought like, I wonder if I can protest this. You know, like if they're like, "Hey, you got to go on this trip."
I was
I don't
just
know that I would have been paying attention enough. Like, how many of your other classmates?
if suddenly your teachers said this trip is going to cost $1,000 and oh by the way we just made up it needed to happen in the last
Yeah, I
3
mean, what did
weeks.
your other classmates think of it? Did they think that like, "Oh
Here's
gosh, we have to do
here's what
this"?
always happens. It's all I've experienced it with school with our children. I've experienced it in a bunch of different ways. People gripe and complain to themselves as a group and then they go along and do it anyway.
Right,
That's
but
what they do.
do they recognize that it's not something that was
Absolutely.
supposed to happen?
Yes. We're experiencing it right now with a particular uniform situation at school where
Yeah,
someone wants to change something for the sake of changing it, and I think it's dumb, and all the other parents think it's dumb too. But guess who? The only one who ever says anything? It's me.
yeah,
And eventually, there does come a point where I get tired of being the only one who says something. You know, I can't, everybody always rallies behind, Catherine, you should say something. You should say something. It's like, no,
right.
I can't get anything done by myself. And I think that's what I like so much about these individual interactions where something can be done. And I mean, we're not in the uniform situation and, the trip. We're not talking about life and death or some
Right.
dangerous type thing. Um, I mean, the stuff we're talking about is truly hurt feelings of a child, which can affect them for the rest of their lives. I mean, bullying is a real thing in grade school and high school and
Yeah.
above. I mean, all it's due. Oh gosh, it's true. And as adults, I mean, on the internet, the trolling and the, unkindness that happens there, and there's not a ton that can be done about that other than just back up the person that you believe in. But when I'm physically standing in front of someone and can help them,
Right.
I mean, it seems like the go-to choice, but I think the majority of people have a really hard time because 'cause they're like, "Oh, I don't wanna get involved. I'm not
Yeah, it's
sure.
none of my business
It's none of my
almost. Yeah.
business."
Like
Yeah,
with the second story you told when the dad was saying it's none of your business.
right. That's how a lot of people look at it, but I
Yeah.
think the more I listen to stories of people I don't just listen to the true crime stories of this happened to this person, I listen to the survival stories of the people who write in and say, thank God that person was there. Thank God that just stranger saw what was happening
Right.
and pulled me out of that situation. I don't know what would have happened if that person hadn't been there. I mean, I want to be that person. I
Right.
want to be the person who is aware enough to look around and see that someone needs immediate help and be able to get them out of the situation to not further their stress or their strife. And I'm hoping that we can teach our kids that.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I think of the two things, the awareness part of it's the tougher one to teach, only because I don't know that you can teach a kid. I mean, other than putting them in situations, obviously, where they are being more aware, as maybe as you're walking down the street with them, like, hey, do you notice this is happening? And that
right. I don't know how to teach. That's what I'm saying. I don't
I
know
don't
how
know how
to
you would
teach
teach the
it.
awareness part. I do think teaching the leadership part of it is of the two. I think it's the harder to actually do for yourself,
Yeah.
but I think it's the easier one to teach
Yeah.
because you can mentally rep that.
Well, kids learn so much through their parents. And
Sure.
so I would hope that I'm modeling these behaviors. Well, gosh, when would they ever see? I don't know. Maybe I do things in certain ways to where they would see it
Yeah.
as an example. But they sure didn't see me writing anything ugly about a kid in class,
No. Right.
or
Yeah.
about anybody like I don't talk about people in front of the children. Like
Right.
that doesn't happen. I mean, I don't really talk about anybody
I was
anyway,
gonna say I
but
don't know that we really talk about people
so
in
they
general.
don't experience that. So why on earth would he write on a note? I don't know. Like that's the kind of stuff. I feel like I'm a very. I don't know. I say I'm eyes wide open. Maybe I'm not, but I would like to think that I'm an eyes wide open parent, and I don't ever put anything past my kid. Like I'm ready for whatever may come my way, and
Right.
that is probably my biggest fear is that I'll get a call one day that one of our kids was in a situation, a group situation, and something happened, and just the disappointment, for like because of course it's going to come back on me. As a parent, I always feel like it comes back on me, even if they're an adult. That will forever and ever be our lot in life, I think.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, though, it's the kid makes their
Of
decisions.
course. Yeah. But
What could we have done to prevent that?
well, and we see them doing well at school and earning model Christian student and things like that. Like they're kind to their classmates, but
Right.
they're not as kind to their they don't they don't carry that across the board to their siblings. And so
Yeah,
you
that's
know
a
it's
completely different
I know, but you
situation,
know
though.
it's in there. You know that
The ugliness is
the
in there.
ugliness is in there.
Yeah.
And again, we're not really talking about them being the ones that are targeting someone. We're talking about them being a bystander to it and
Yeah.
processing it and doing the right thing when they're standing in the moment. And I don't know. I don't know that you can teach that. We can try our best.
Well, so on Instagram, the day that our son got in trouble for passing the note, I made the comment that, I coach him in basketball, and at basketball, he does do that. As the coach of the basketball team, I hold a pretty high standard, and it's a no nonsense kind of practice. And they're 9 years old. There's a lot of nonsense happening at practice, but I feel like I'm constantly yelling at them to get
But here's the
them
thing.
straight, and he does that for me. I mean,
Yeah, he's a
he
leader.
recognizes, like, we're not supposed to touch each other when we're in line. We have to stay in line. Don't skip people in line. Don't argue about the trivial things about he got to touch the ball more than me or whatever.
But I think it comes down to escalating also. I think it's goes from, for example, this guy at the gym. I'm sure it was a simple, "Hey, how you doing?" And then
Mhm.
it ramps up to something else, and then it ramps up to something
Right.
else until she's scared and she
Yeah,
goes to
where
the
she probably told
bathroom.
him, "Leave me alone. I'm not interested," and he did not leave her alone.
Something.
Right.
And in the case of our kid who's writing notes, it could have started off as a just passing notes. This is fun, blah blah blah, and then it got ugly about another. I
Yeah,
don't
he
know
told
how
me
it.
that they pass notes. That's like a thing that they do,
Yeah.
which I
Well,
I don't know if they're not supposed to do that.
I
I
don't
don't
think
know
they're.
how.
I think that's like the very stereotypical thing you're not supposed to do in school is pass notes. But
I mean that.
um,
I mean, maybe.
who knows?
I
Times
don't
have
know.
changed.
I'm not lying. If I saw kids passing notes in my class, I would think nothing of it. As a teacher, I would think nothing of it.
Okay. Well, so we don't know if it started as let's play, a game of tic tac toe with each other across
Right.
the thing, and then it escalates into something. And so I think that's where the trouble comes in. Something is seemingly fine, it's fine, it's fine, and then suddenly
Right.
it's not fine. At that point, are they willing to walk away?
Right.
Go against what they have been participating in for the last however many minutes or hours or whatever, and suddenly go, oh my gosh, like suddenly this isn't right.
Right. We've gone too far.
This has gone too far,
Right.
and catch it before it's really gone too far. You know what I'm saying? Like that is the fear.
Yeah.
This isn't a matter of like you've gone from nothing to everything. This is this like ramping up,
Mhm.
and will they identify when that moment comes?
Sure.
And so the question for you guys is, are you capable? Do you identify it? Will you identify it? Have you ever been in a situation that you
Everyone's been
regret?
in those situations.
But I can't think of one beyond the ones I'm telling you about that I did something about.
Yeah.
I can't think of a situation that I was in that I didn't act on something that I saw was wrong.
Right.
So, if that is something that you've experienced, what's something that you would regret not doing? And how can you change from here on out? How can you take that a little bit of regret, and it can be something small. It doesn't have to be this
Yeah.
huge
Right.
thing that eats you up inside.
I mean, it could be just, there's gossip among your group of friends that you have, and you're gossiping about another person that's in your group, and
Mhm.
and it needs to stop.
Yeah.
And are you going to say something, or leaving mean comments on people's social media or something? I don't know.
That feels very personal. Is there something going on we need to talk about?
No, I mean, I'm trying to think of examples.
Mean comments on the internet don't bother me. I really need to do a mean tweet. The version of mean tweets for whatever it is YouTube. I get
Yeah.
mean comments on YouTube all the time, and they always make me laugh because people get so mad about the dumbest stuff. They get so
Well, and
mad.
they take time out of their day to.
That's what makes me so sad for
Yeah.
them.
I mean, there's plenty of dumb stuff I read on the internet all the time or see, and you're just like,
You don't.
on to the next thing. Like, I can't even, I'm not even gonna
Yeah, if
waste
you
time with
don't,
that.
yeah, you've read some of the comments I've gotten. I mean, they just go on and on and on about. I mean, they make it personal
They
too.
do, yeah, they
Sometimes
have
they'll
to.
talk
They
about
get
my kids and all
right,
kinds of things. Like, okay, well,
yeah. Hope
you
you
do
feel
you.
better about that.
All I'm saying is, you guys, this is what this whole episode is about: is are you as an adult, like we always bring in the kids and everything because there's so many examples, but are you the kind of person who is going to be aware
Right.
and look
And again,
around?
that to me, that's the tougher part.
That's the key.
Is like you have to pay attention to life enough to notice
Well,
that
Lord,
these things are happening around you.
Lord knows there's probably been 1,000
I don't
opportunities.
think that I'm totally aware. Like I really do think that in college, if they had like, hey, you got to go do this, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do it, just because you
Oh,
told me to.
I'm telling you, another instance was, I mean, I'm selling LSU out a little bit, but they tried to change us from a 5-year major to a 4-year major, which was fine, but you can't do it while I'm still attending college and going through my general catalog. When you go to college, you guys listen up. If you are younger and haven't attended college, or older and haven't attended college, whatever,
Or have kids that will soon be in college.
yes, when they give you your general catalog, which is the thing they hand to you when you register for college, and it has all the majors and all the classes that you
Mm-hmm.
need to take and all the hours that it takes to become, to graduate in that major, they cannot change it on you. When you start and they tell you it's 123 hours to graduate and they tell you all the classes you have to graduate, they can't change it. It is what it is. They tried to change it on us.
Yeah.
And
See,
they
that's
had
something I wouldn't have known.
and so they had to have the entire class sign a paper that said that they would agree or they couldn't do it. Guess who
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't sign it? Catherine Cannon.
Catherine. Yeah.
I was like,
See, but again,
absolutely
like you
not.
had to have known that somehow. How did you know that?
I don't remember. I have a really bad brain. I'm sure there's someone who's listening to this right now. It's like, I told you. I was the one who told you. I don't even
Yeah.
remember.
There's no way I would have known.
There was just several times where they tried to make really big changes, and I was of the mind that you start changing that, and I
Right.
have no control over what
Sure.
else you change. I have no control over what these class numbers are going to change to, what's required. Suddenly, I'm
Right.
not going to be in college for 5 years anymore. I'm going to be in college for 6 years. And
Mm-hmm.
I was ready to get out of there by year 3. I was
Yeah.
probably ready to get out of there by year 2. Like I hung on by my fingertips and my fingernails and be damned if they were going to change my general catalog into something else. And LinkedIn possibly, I had no idea what would happen. The unknown's always the scariest part.
Sure.
And for me, it was like, no, I know I'm going to be here 5 years. I know this is the classes I have to take. I've been planning all these classes since freshman year. I've been responsible. And then you want to change it in the last minute. I was not cool with it at all.
Yeah.
So I did not sign the paper, and it did not change. I think to this day, it's probably still a 5-year major. Probably all my fault.
I'm
I
surprised
don't
they didn't just
know.
wait for you to leave and be like, all right, now let's sign the papers.
I
Hurry.
don't
She's gone.
know. They could. Why didn't you start it with the freshmen? You can change the general catalog with the
Right.
freshmen.
And
Why
maybe
would you?
that's what they've done. Maybe they're trying to turn the whole program over, but it's like, I guess we'll just start with.
You got to start somewhere, but you
Or
can't
maybe the
start with
class
the people
after you,
who.
maybe they all signed.
I don't know if they did or not. They'd be big old guinea pig suckers if they did. Can you imagine? I was there for 5 years, but probably half of my class had changed major to landscape architecture at
Mm-hmm.
some point. So, and all their stuff is lost.
Right. Nothing transfers over.
No, because when you start in landscape architecture at LSU, at least when I was there, when you start in landscape architecture, you are starting freshman year taking classes in your major.
Right.
This is
Most other
not.
majors aren't like that.
No, most other majors transfer over to a lot
Right.
of different things. It's not like that with landscape
Yeah.
architecture. And so if you are in something else and you want to switch to landscape architecture, most of your stuff is lost. And so half of my class probably was in some previous major, had already been in college for at least a year or two, came over to
Mhm.
landscape architecture to spend 5 more years. The thought of that right now makes me itchy to spend 7 years in college. Like,
Yeah.
Lord have mercy, I want it out of there.
You're on the TOPS program back then.
Back then, if you were on the TOPS program, yeah, you had your 4 or 5 years or whatever, and you were outsies. Man, the TOPS program was sweet back then.
Yeah.
It's not as sweet anymore.
Not anymore.
I don't know if that casino money ran out or the lotto money or whatever. I don't know. But there's a lot. We won't get political. I don't know what's happening.
I don't know
zero.
either.
I have zero idea. All I know is the TOPS program paid for a lot of people to
Yeah, it
full
did.
rides to college.
Yeah.
And I don't think it does as much anymore. So
back to it though. It's awareness is part 1, and then second is
execution.
execution. Yeah. You see it, and then do you actually do it? You could have very easily looked around. Oh, I don't see that girl anymore. All right, let me finish my workout, and I'm gonna get out of here.
Yeah, I don't really know.
Like you actually sought her out in the bathroom.
And I didn't want to scare her either.
Right.
I didn't want to be the creepy person who was. But then I thought, woman to woman. I thought about it a lot. And obviously my brain cells were moving pretty quick in order for. This all happened within probably 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But I thought, I'm not threatening. As woman to woman, I can go into the locker room, and she seemed a lot more scared of him than she will be of me.
Right.
So why not take a chance? I just went in to ask her if she was okay. And then once she was crying, I was like, okay, you're not okay,
Sure.
clearly. So,
But in
and
the case of our son, he recognized at some point. I'm sure he recognized. In fact, I think there was a writing on there like "what?" question mark. That the kid was trying to make fun of this other kid,
who's his
and
friend? Who is our
right,
child's friend?
yeah, and he could have crumpled up the paper right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once he recognized, okay, you're making fun of that kid,
So the
he could
pushback
have,
on that, the fear on that is always, oh, what?
yeah,
You're such a punk. Why would you do
yeah,
that?
you're so
You're
lame,
so lame. I mean, I've gotten that before.
right?
I've stuck up for women before in a room full of men. It's like, oh, there's the feminist in the room. Like, okay, guys, like, not necessarily. Just because I'm standing up for a woman doesn't make it like a thing based on sex. And so you have to be the person who's willing to listen to a bunch of guff
Yeah.
because you're not cool to do the same, go with the flow and do everything
Although I will
everybody else
say
is
the
doing.
specific instance I think you're talking about is at my parents' house where
Yeah,
arguments, like people just love to argue. It doesn't matter what you would have said. Someone would have jumped on the other side just for the sake of jumping on the other
sure.
side.
And I think that's where I've really polished. I mean, between my
Yes.
parents and your parents, I've really polished some debate skill.
Right.
So, whatever. I mean, I think it was meant to be, probably. In the end of the day, I don't get upset about it. Like, I
Yeah. I
think
mean, just
it is what it is. I'm still
right.
going to say it. It's not going to, I'm not, again, back to the whole like political or whatever. Like, I'm not going to have those arguments with people. Like, that's just
Sure.
not who
There's
I
no changing
am.
people's minds with that.
No, I mean, that's what I believe. I don't think that there is.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a short blip,
Well,
a tweet.
words don't change minds.
Yeah.
So that could be a whole nother discussion for another day.
So for the action, if it's words that don't change people's minds, it's actions. And I want to be a person of action. And I'm hoping that this podcast, just discussing it, will at least make your brain. I mean, that's kind of what I hope for every week, is that it puts a little bit of thought in your head
Right.
about maybe if it's something that you're already doing, you
Mm-hmm.
go, but am I doing it?
Right.
You just consider for a second, it's like a check. Every
Right.
week is just like a check of like,
Yeah.
is this
Oh, that's
something?
interesting. Am I doing that?
Yeah,
Oh,
am I
wait, I'm
doing
not
that?
doing that. I
Are
need
my
to.
kids doing that? Am
Right.
I worried that my kids might be that person? And don't be that parent who says my kid will never do that.
Right.
Please don't be that parent.
Don't ever say
Don't
never when it comes to stuff like that.
never say never about anything. Don't
Right.
ever say you won't travel somewhere. Don't ever say you won't.
I will never do that.
Don't ever say I won't ever eat that. Don't ever say your kid would never do whatever. Those are the very kids who will do it because their parents will forever back them up
Yeah.
for doing some stupid thing. Defend them to the death.
Yeah, I mean that's what we've told our kids is that if you see something wrong and you need to get involved, you need to step in and defend. And if that means that you have to get physical to get things defended
We
the
have had
right
that
way,
conversation with them.
then you get physical and we'll sort it out afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know that what's going on is wrong, you need to put an end to it.
Now, that was the case of our children defending themselves. There was a kid
Yeah,
who
but
was.
I've told them also that
I think, but
after this particular incident happened with the passing of the note,
yeah.
I told them that you need to put an end to it. Which I mean, a lot of times it's just, hey, I'm not doing that, and that's it.
Yeah, you don't have to go like turn it into the teacher.
Sure.
You don't have to get the person in trouble per se.
No, yeah. I
If
mean,
there's
you
no
can
harm,
handle
no
it.
foul.
Right.
If
Handle
we're
it how
not
you
talking
have to
about a
handle it.
criminal type thing where someone was actually hurt, and that you do need to do something about it,
Right.
which I know can wreck people's brains sometimes, but do the right thing. No, we're talking about a note in class that only the two of them knew about, the two writing the notes.
Could have
He very
ended it.
easily could have crumpled it up, thrown it away. The teacher never would have known. It would have been between the two of them.
Right.
That would have been enough.
Sure. But in the case if it does escalate to like what you had to deal with, you had to physically get involved.
I had to physically get involved, and I did tell the management because that dude's a creeper, and he's gonna creep on someone else.
Sure.
She's not the last victim of that.
Right. Yeah.
So
the very next day, he's probably hitting on some other girl in the gym.
Possibly. I mean, I'm in that gym at weird times. Like I don't always go the same time,
Right.
and I've never seen him in there before. But the management, when I went up to them, did say something like, "Huh, he's not usually like that." I'm like, "Dude, get him out of here."
Yeah. Well, that means they know who he is.
Yeah, they
At
knew
least
who
they
he
recognize.
was. Anyway, I don't know what that's probably my biggest regret is that I didn't make a big enough deal about it to the
Yeah.
management
to where they felt like they needed to
I don't think that girl's ever
get
going to come
involved.
back. But if I really believe that he could do that to somebody else, then
Sure.
they do need to get him the hell out of there.
Right.
And so that if I were to have any regret, that would be what it would be, is that I didn't push hard enough for them to do something right then about him.
Sure.
To be honest, I think I was a little afraid of what the repercussions on me from him could be. Would he meet me out in the parking lot? Who's there to protect me then?
Right.
You know, if I'm the bad guy, that girl's never coming back.
Sure.
She will never be there again.
You know, I'll say this, though. A lot of times, though, bullies like that, when you stood up to him, he's probably not going to mess with you because you were the one
I
that
don't
stood
know,
up.
man. People who are creeping on girls, they're a different breed.
That's true.
A whole
some
different
people
breed.
are just crazy.
So that was my fear. That was my reluctance, was
Right.
fear of retribution from him if he had seen that it was me that complained.
Sure.
And then waited out in the parking lot.
And really, I mean, at that point, I guess you have to gauge how much you really need to get involved.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, she's not coming back. Again, it would have to do with the future girls who he could possibly creep on somewhere else, and how much responsibility do I have to that?
Right.
And who knows? Maybe he never did that before. Will never do it again. I have no idea at all.
Right. It might have been enough that management went and talked to him, like, "Hey, someone just told us you're creeping on some girl." And
I don't know. I'd be
real
interested.
Got our eye on you.
I'd be very interested to know how much push the managers had to go and say anything. You know, speaking of being in a position where now you need to do something.
Right.
I don't know what they did.
To do that, though.
Yeah.
But you're right. To what extent did they do their job? I don't know. You hope.
The two people I talked to were both women. Do you think women would walk up to him and say, "Hey, man, we heard you're being a creeper"?
I think there's always, at least every time I've gone in there, I go in there at the same time every day, but there's been a couple times where I went in at a different time. There's always a male.
Yes, there were males.
So they could have very easily just gotten one of them.
Honestly,
one of those guys.
I consider, like, I'm going through all this stuff in my head. I considered if I had pushed it further, I would have asked one of the guys to walk me out.
Right.
Like, I've done that in stores before. You know that story.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time, I love a thrift shop. And I was walking around in the thrift shop, and this guy, that's the weirdest thing, that they're, like, so obvious about it. Like, he's just staring me down the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, I see you looking at me, and you're being weird.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, everywhere I go, I look back, and he was looking. Everywhere I'd go, I turn around, he was looking at me, like, not really shopping for anything, just looking at me. And all I can think is sex trafficking. That's all I could think of in my brain, because I'm close to an interstate. The Goodwill I was at was close to an interstate.
Mm-hmm.
It's close to a Walmart. Like, that seems to be kind of, at least in my head from when I read articles, that's kind of the places they peruse around.
They just jump on the interstate and
you're gone.
Yeah.
You're gone. And so I had one of the Goodwill workers walk me out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I walked next door to a different store and then came out. I don't remember exactly the sequence scenario or whatever, but I do remember seeing him walking outside the store and, like, walking down and looking. He was definitely following me. This was not in my head.
Yeah.
And then eventually he drove away. And I think I went back over and asked the Goodwill person to walk me out, but it scared the life out of me. I remember calling you right afterward, and I was probably crying because it was extremely scary.
Yeah.
But again, I was wearing headphones, like I always do.
That was probably a tag for them, too.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely. But I'm aware. Like, I was looking.
Yeah.
I'm shopping, but I'm looking. And so I think I eventually took at least one of my earphones out, probably both.
Yeah.
To signal, like, I see you, man. Like, I don't know. But again, in those cases, I don't even know how much to let them know that I'm aware of what's going on. Or do you just sneak out the best you can? But man, that dude creeped me out.
Yeah.
But again, awareness is number one, for sure.
Absolutely.
And there's probably been plenty of times where I have been looking at my phone and not fully paying attention.
Yep.
And something has saved my life. Mm-hmm. Someone or something that I never knew about has saved my life. So that's our conversation on awareness and doing the right thing. Hopefully got your little brain cells working on if you've been in a situation that we described, if your children have been in a situation, and just having that conversation with yourself, an honest conversation with yourself, an honest conversation with your children. Start watching out for it. Be aware. And then do the right thing, you guys.
You got to do it.
Because it matters.
You got to do it.
It matters to people. It matters to you. And it's if you don't act on it, it's going to nag you forever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do the right thing, it can be the difference in somebody's life. I mean, it really is a huge deal. So you guys get out there and be a little more self-aware and do something about it. If you want to email us or write us, you can send us an email at buildingaaronsburg@gmail.com. You can write us on social media in the comment section. Thomas is loving all the DMs.
I'm getting lots of them.
On Instagram at Building Aaronsburg, and on Facebook, we're also Building Aaronsburg. And of course, if you guys would give us a 5-star review on whatever app you're listening to our podcast, we would really, really appreciate it. It makes people more aware of our podcast, and they can listen to it. So until next time, bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.